Well, hey everyone, this is Kim at the Able Gardener, and my mic wasn't working a minute ago, and I hope that I hope it was just some kind of adjustment I needed. But anyway, I'm getting ready to possibly do a winter feeding on my bees. I'm making a little bee winter feeder. So I just got some hardware cloth that's, well, it's a 1/2 inch. It's something that I already had, and I really wish I had just a 1/4 inch to make this out of. But I've never seen this before on any YouTube channels or anything that I've read, any books or anything like that. So I'm not saying I recommend feeding your bees this way in the wintertime, because this may not work out. The little riser that I should have made, a little 2 to 3 inch riser that goes around the top of the hive, and then you can just feed your bees on top of the frames, I didn't get that made. I made this yesterday. I'm in here cutting it down today, making it so the well, just so that it's the same size as the frame that I took out. So this is a 10 frame super. I'm going to replace this one frame in the middle with a wire feeder. There we go. Let it just rest on either side on the 2 frames. And then what I'll be feeding my bees is probably a little bit of this protein patty. Now this is soy protein, plus it has some pollen in it, and then the rest is just sugar, or it looks like molasses. It's nice and brown. So depending on what the bees look like and how much honey I see when I open the lid, then that determines on whether I feed them at all, whether I feed them just a little bit, or maybe this whole thing. Now, I also made a sugar cake. Now I wanted to make a sugar cake because it has very little water in it. So there are a lot of sugar cake recipes online. I've seen a lot of those. So I made this one just about a 1/2 inch, and I made just a little cut down the middle. So if my bees don't need very much of the sugar cake, I can just break it in 2 or break it in 4ths. And also 1/2 inch will fit down in this little feeder better. Now the other thing that I could feed my bees, but I'm not going to, is this is a little dispenser or a little feeder for sugar water. Now you can do 1/2 and 1/2 sugar water. In the wintertime, you could give them 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. From what I've read and what I understand, they're not readily going to come out and eat any sugar water and then go back in, because inside, in the wintertime, once the temperature outside gets down to about 56, 57 degrees, your bees form a winter cluster. And what that is all your bees have congregated to the middle of the hive, and their cluster is nice and tight, and what they're trying to do is just keep warm. So it's cold outside, they've clustered together to keep warm. The bees on the outside are more or less vibrating their wing muscles and producing heat. And then the bees on the inside, they're taking care of the queen, feeding her. They're taking care of any brood in there. They're going and getting honey, well, food, wherever they can find it inside the hive, feeding the queen, feeding the brood, and then they rotate. Those bees will actually move. Some of the outside ones will move to the inside will move to the outside. It's just a really fascinating thing, fascinating part of nature. So that's one of the reasons why I don't want to feed sugar water, is I don't want them to come out of that cluster, have to go all the way down to the bottom of the hive where it's cold, come out, then drink some cold, icy sugar water, take it back inside, and then add to the humidity of the hive, because humidity can kill your bees in the wintertime. Plus, they will take what they don't eat and deposit it into some of the empty honeycombs. And then later on, a couple months later, whenever they go to make honey, they'll deposit honey on top of that sugar water that's in the honeycomb. You go to get the honey out later, and what you're actually harvesting is honey and sugar water. So it's just something to think about. I thought that was really interesting too. So no sugar water for the bees. They're just going to have a sugar cake and the protein patty if they need it. So I'm going to get suited up. I've got my hat and my jacket here, my gloves. I'm going to get suited up. I'll go out, start the smoker, look in at the bees really quick. I don't want to let all that heat out, so I'm going to keep my checking of the bees in winter down to about, well, no more than a minute if possible. Now it's probably going to be a little bit more than that. When I go to feed them, I'm going to have to check to see how much honey they have to eat, and then determine how much of this food I need to put in here. So I'm really hoping that they don't need any food at all, and they can just eat the honey that's in there, and then I can get my little riser made and feed them a different way. Anyway, I think that's it. I've got my feeder, same size as this little super frame. I've got, well, I'll take everything out there. Got everything I need. Not going to take that stuff, so let's go outside and check my bees. If I can get up. Well, I've gotten my smoker going, and my bees are coming over here. They're not really aggressive, but they do have a lot of pollen on their legs because the sun came out today and something started blooming. And it didn't take long for it to start blooming, whatever it is. I think what it is down the road about, oh, not even a mile, someone has a field of mustard, and it takes a little bit of sun and that mustard starts blooming. My bees head out and they start getting their legs full of pollen. So let me bring you over and show you the bees. And like I said, I think this is from some mustard plants down the street. And here I've got the bottom closed off a little bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that, move it away for now, because they're wanting to get in and get that pollen off their legs. So I don't have an entrance area where it has a little sliding board that you can just close off, and what I do is I just take a half a piece of bamboo and I put that bamboo in there, but I'm going to take it off for now because these guys are just determined to get in there and get rid of their pollen. And they're just falling down off of that upper hole wanting to get in. They do have a hole up above. They're going in there, and they're going in the bottom entrance. But it's supposed to rain again tonight and be cold tonight. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to smoke them a little bit, get the lid off, and see what their honey stores look like. Now, if they're loaded with pollen, I don't really want to smoke them in the front and keep them away from getting rid of the pollen on their legs. So I'm just going to smoke it on the top, maybe a little bit around me to keep them away from me if they're getting aggressive at all. They seem to be fine. They don't seem to be really aggressive. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hive tool, crack the top, smoke the bees a little bit, and look at their honey stores, see if they need any extra food. If they do, I'll put that super on the top, and if not, I'll just put the lid back on. And it looks like they are building their cluster up. They are making a hive coming up to the top of the lid, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So let me come over and get you guys. I'll show you what the bees look like, and we'll both take a look at what kind of honey they have in there. So let's just check out the honey stores they have. Without breaking the cluster by taking a frame out, I can see down in this frame and the third frame over, and then I have a lot of cluster in here, so you can't really check down and see how much honey they have, but they have quite a bit of honey in those first two frames and some in the third over here on the edge. So from the looks of it, my bees had enough honey to take them for a while. Those first three frames look like they were, well, not quite full of honey, but at least 75% full. So I've got my new lid on there. I'm not going to fool with them anymore. Like I had said, if you leave the top off when it's cold outside, that cluster will start going down in temperature. The bees need to start building that temperature back up, and to do that they need to use a lot of their energy reserves, and that takes honey. Well, you guys, I've got the bees checked. They look like they're fine for now. I'm going to take the super back inside. I'll wrap up the food, put it in the refrigerator to keep, and definitely that little protein bar for the bees, you need to wrap that up and keep it in the refrigerator. It just goes in a little plastic bag, and that's it for now. I'll be checking them probably in another couple of weeks to a month, just to make sure. I want to keep an eye on their food reserves and make sure that they don't run out in the wintertime, because you don't want to lose your colony in the middle of winter just because you let them starve. Well, you guys, thanks for joining me today on my bee update. I'll be talking to you later. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.